This is the Girls of the Genziana Hotel Part 1. This is a playtest of a Car from Brindlewood game that is currently in development, available as an ashcan on itch by Hendrik 10 Naples. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It is a project I've been following pretty closely, and I've run a few times now, and I find it to be pretty fun. And Hendrik continues to develop it in very interesting and cool ways. So we are going to be playtesting the current version of the rules as he has sent them to me. So let's talk a little bit about this. The Girls of the Genziana Hotel is a role playing game about the chambermaids that vow to investigate the disappearance of one of their own, Marga, the boyish girl with the wild curls. It is the 19th century, and all the young girls and all the young women work at the Genziana, an alpine hotel at the edge of the German territories. The Napoleonic Wars have come to an end, and Europe is changing, but you don't care about that. You just need to know what happened to her. During the day, the girls, as they're called, will have to balance their daily work and the investigation. During the night, they will brave the dark hallways into which their friend has disappeared. They will deal with the strict head of staff, the entitled guests, the rest of the staff, and in the end, those responsible for Marga's fate. Generally, you might be into this game if you are into murder mysteries and gothic horror stories. As young women and maids, the girls are at the bottom of the patriarchal hierarchy of the hotel. That said, this game is about subverting that position to get some type of revenge. So if you're into female rebellion, this is also for you. Some subject matter besides patriarchal oppression, female rebellion, grief, horror, and violence. You will get to define most of the subject matter that comes up during play. Sexuality, for example, is implied, but can be limited or ignored entirely. In accordance with the player's boundaries, this game might also feature abortion, gaslighting, stalking, harassment, and violence against women, plus anxiety, isolation, depression, and trauma. It may feature intoxication and addiction. Some elements imply ghosts and other supernatural horror, and all of the dreams are surreal nightmares, but can be selected by preference or change. The dreams are a mechanic in this game for those familiar with other Carved from Brindlewood systems, very similar to the Unseen. So generally, we have all gamed before, and I do have a safety tab for lines and veils on our digital character keeper. You guys can begin filling that out, and we'll also be maintaining roaming lines and veils just because I am familiar with this as a group and we're comfortable playing together, that if anything ever comes up that makes you uncomfortable in an unfun way, I trust you all to use the abundance of safety tools that we normally use, X card, open door policy, whatever suits your needs. And we will go from there. So yeah, that's the Girls of the Genziana Hotel. Let's take a moment to introduce ourselves, which I should have done at the top, but I'm doing now. I will be running the game. What the role that is usually the keeper in other Carved from Brindlewood games is called the mistress here. My name is Alex Rabitsky. I use he/they pronouns, and I am a person who works at the Gauntlet doing fun game design things, and I co-host podcasts. But yeah, anywho, Wes, you go next.
Hi there. Howdy there. My name is Wes Franks. My pronouns are they, them. I am a writer, designer of various TTRPGs. I've played a bunch with a couple of these folks, and I've played once before with Steph, and so I'm excited to be diving into more. I already typed it in the side chat here, but I'm excited to play this game because it strangely is hitting my ghosts and spanking interest quadrants of my interest charts. I have different quadrants that are like it's like ghosts, heavy metal, movies, and spanking. And like this is like kind of hitting three. So we'll see if it hits all four at any point.
Right in the pocket.
Right in the pocket.
Steph, you go next.
Hi, that's me. That's my name. I'm Steph Infection for most people. I use she, her pronouns. I am also a writer, a game designer. I most recently was the head curse writer for Cryptid Creeks, and I am in the background working very slowly on my game Site 42, which is SCP-esque CFB.
Awesome. And chaotic.
I am Chaotic. I use he, they pronouns. I've also worked on Cryptid Creeks as part of the anthology team. I've also been keeping a diligent record keeping of CFB projects, and God, I need to go through all the games again because people keep on making too many of them. I've gotten like almost like 300 entries about like various projects people are working on, and I just like, tell me what you have, please, because I don't want to keep on going through the CFB forums, please.
Absolutely. You do hard work. Thank you. All right. So we have a digital character keeper that I created. I'm not really much in the design space when it comes to making these things, but I knocked it out in one afternoon, and I think Hendrik even linked it on the itch page for this game. So if you play it, you're welcome to use my ever changing character keeper. And we're gonna set up the character creation stuff here. So we all have a pretty good grasp on the themes from that introduction, I feel like, but just to make sure that it's hitting that home a little bit more. This is a game where the story could get sleazy, scary, sad, or abhorrent. And like I said, the implied supernatural themes, depending on where the story goes and y'all's ambitions as players, could, it's going to be like a moving meter of how implied versus direct, if at all. So we'll find out. Yeah, let's start talking about creating the chambermaids that will be the protagonists of our story. As a reminder about the setting, so it is the 19th century, shortly after the end of the Napoleonic Wars. The Genziana Hotel is located in the German Alps, and you will be playing chambermaids, who are seasonal workers that are aged somewhere between 19 and 21, probably German or Italian, maybe even Hungarian. They can come from any walk of life, pending an interesting explanation for why they are working at the hotel this year. So you are going to fill out every detail in the little character creation box at the top of our character keeper. And you are going to do all of that. You'll assign attribute values to charm, smarts, and guts. And that is where we will stop. As a note on a couple of things about your character. So these girls, we have some list of options here from the book. There's first name options. The parents and class is very much for your kind of like maybe like, upbringing, your background. And when it comes to making a surname, the game has a really good trick, which is take your parents' occupation and translate it into their native language. And that is your surname. Very simple, very easy. So if you're from Italy and you're, doing, merchants, just translate the word merchant, or if you want to specifically say what kind of merchant, then you can translate that and have your surname. So we're going to take a moment to do that. And there are also some look options for your girls. These cover things like their hair, their eyes, their hands, and their uniform. You are welcome to disregard any of these suggestions and write your own. They're just there for something to latch onto. And you have 3 abilities in contrast to what we normally see with other Carve from Brindlewood games. You have charm, smarts, and guts. Basically, charm covers anything involving social activity, even if it's like flirting, acting like a ditz, that kind of stuff. Smarts is quite literally anything that involves mental acuity, outthinking, outmaneuvering, perhaps even, depending on the circumstances. And guts is really very like it can cover a lot of territory as well. These are not like necessarily as easy cut and dry as saying like, oh, vitality, presence, and reason. Guts is very much like when you are breaking the rules, when you're stepping out of place, when you are standing up to something. We rely on guts. It's how well your girl basically does under pressure when she steps out of line, when she breaks the rules of the patriarchal hierarchy. Something to that effect. I'm sure that there's a more nuanced and simple way of saying it, but that communicates the basic vibe. And you can assign points to your 3 abilities. It's just a +2, a +1, and a -1. So dole those out wherever you wish. I think we will take a quick pause in the recording to let everyone finish up their character creation in terms of these details. And when we come back, we will introduce our girls and proceed with character creation. All right, so we have finished the first step of character creation. But before we get into introducing these girls, let's first talk a little bit more about the Genziana Hotel itself and a note on playing with history. So, the Genziana Hotel is a former monastery built with large old stones. It was secularized in 1804, and it has become a flourishing alpine hotel named after a deeply blue mountain flower, the gentians. It is led by the strict Miss Pfeiffer. The staff cares for every aspect of the stay of their privileged guest. The Genziana is a large building. It lies at the end of a new path and borders on a dense and dark pine forest. The azure blue of the gentians is everywhere, in and outside of the hotel. So even though this game is set in the early 19th century after the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire, as the German territories were once called, it is not much concerned with historical accuracy. The setting supplies a certain atmosphere and broad cultural norms, and an absence of most technological advances that would significantly change the course of play. So, no phones, no telegraphs, no railways, and little organized police force. We're going to try to hit a broadly Victorian tone while playing around in a Gothic alpine hotel where danger stalks the hallways. Pretty straightforward, all things considered. And also, a lot of us come from playing the Between, so we're pretty comfortable with this general playing with history. So yeah, let's go ahead and introduce these characters. You can introduce them by their name, their look, and anything else you want to like throw out there about them that you think is fun in your initial ideas. We will have more that is given to them in the next step. But for now, basic round of introductions. Let's go in character keeper order. So starting with chaotic.
Anyways, my character is Anna Basmajan. She has unruly hair, distracted eyes, gesturing hands, and a brand new uniform. She, because this got hid away, her parents are very influential merchants, and I think she's one of the newer girls here.
Totally. And with your attribute array that you assign, how does that kind of paint a picture of who she is as a person?
Well, she's a little bit of an air, like a sort of person that has like her head up in the clouds with like ideas of like how to make things better, and is like just sort of like seems like harmless, and is actually just pretty harmless. Looks like a cinnamon roll, is a cinnamon roll.
Totally. Awesome. I love it. Wes.
Yeah. You are going to be seeing me portray Patrizia Manasalco, who is a girl with shiny hair, intense eyes, strong hands, and a mended uniform. Very strong of very like strong of like guts and pretty crafty, but has no charm about her whatsoever. And is very blunt and honest with people, very direct as well. Her parents are respectable craftspeople. She comes from a blacksmithing family, an Italian blacksmithing family, specifically farriers. And so yeah, so she's very like focused and dutiful and everything like that, but has no charm about her whatsoever.
I love it. And last but not least, Steph.
Hi, I'll be playing Tiziana Vagabondi. She has bushy hair, friendly eyes, nimble hands, and a wrinkled uniform. And her parents are undesirable vagrants. Her stats are, they pretty much tell the story of someone who is used to getting by and breaking the rules, but who is trying desperately to punch up and climb the rungs.
Oh, very good. I'm excited to meet these girls in play and explore whatever our story involves. So let's talk about the prelude to that story. This is included in the game, and it kind of sets the scene, the inciting incident of where the story begins, as well as segues into the next part of our story. So let me pull up that prelude here. Marga, the boyish girl with the wild curls, is the only chambermaid absent from the dormitory. Nobody knows where she could be. Girls whisper and giggle. You, too, can't talk of anything else until the door opens. Miss Pfeiffer, the head of staff, stepped into the room, still in uniform. Her eyes are more inscrutable than ever, and she keeps one hand behind her back. Girls, she says, Marga has disappeared. Everything points to her running away, out of shame, I suspect. Saying these words, Miss Pfeiffer reveals a blood-stained stocking. It hangs in the air, black and soiled. Someone starts to cry, and the group erupts in talk again. Silence! A stomp of Miss Pfeiffer's boot shakes the floor. Let me be perfectly clear. Under no circumstance are our guests to catch wind of this. I don't want to hear anybody talk about it. Not in the hallway, not in the kitchen, not in the garden, nowhere. Marga doesn't exist anymore. Lights out. After a moment, someone turns down the lamps and Miss Pfeiffer closes the door behind her. Everyone crawls into bed, moonlight peeking through the curtains. Nobody is able to sleep. An invisible force pushes you to your feet and towards the only empty bed in the room. There, you all gather. You open her bag with quiet hands, look in her drawer and lift her mattress. You gather all of Marga's belongings in the middle of the floor and silently you divide them amongst each other. Starting with the player with the highest guts, which I believe is Patrizia, you are going to select an item from this list here, which I'm going to send here in a moment in our Zoom chat, the list of Marga's belongings. You're going to pick an item and narrate a flashback that characterizes your relationship to Marga. Then that item becomes your memento on your character sheet. The list of Marga's items is, let's see, right here. It's also available as a drop-down list, but I'm just going to go ahead and post this in our chat for simplicity's sake. There you go. So Patrizia gets to pick first amongst all of her belongings. There is the soft packet of cigarettes, half empty, the ink drawing of a ballerina, the creased postcard of a lake, Bisbald Mutti, the bouquet of dried gentians, the dog-eared fairy tale book, Die Trags... Oh, God, I don't speak German very well. The dog-eared fairy tale book, Die Tragisch Erzählung von Undine, the tragedy of the Undine, something like that. The small journal filled with tiny script, the sewing scissors in the shape of a stork, and the hidden flask of sticky smelling schnapps. What does Patrizia grab?
Jawohl. As much as I would like to take Die Tragische Erzählung von Undine, I am going to. We talked about it just recently when Artie asked about are there any tics that all of your characters share. And I'm going to take the half-empty pack of cigarettes. Shows what kind of person Patrizia is. It's half empty. It's not half full. But yeah, I think she is going to instantly just grab those because there's a distinct kind of shared memory, and it's frequent memories, kind of all montaging together that we see of Marga and Patrizia sharing cigarettes with one another when they're not supposed to. In that kind of amorphous time in between your first kind of chore shift and then lunch break. There are moments where we'll see Marga and Patrizia going to the edge of the property, the edge of the hotel property, and going by an old abandoned well and smoking cigarettes and just kind of talking. Never gossip or anything, just talking and learning about one another.
I love it. Then looking at Tiziana, what does she grab? And what is her memory of Marga that characterizes their relationship?
Genziana grabs the small journal filled with tiny script, and I think that she remembers walking in on Marga in some area that some cleaning supply closet or something along those lines, and catching her writing in this small journal and quickly stashing it away. Um, Tiziana just smiled at her and let her know that she knows a thing or two about keeping secrets and wouldn't dare spill someone else's, especially not one as important as this. So she immediately grabs the journal and hides it away somewhere that she knows she can keep safe.
Mm. I'll also note before I defer to Steph, defer to no, Steph just went. Defer to chaotic. Um, uh, that there actually is a translation for some of these things included on the list. I just didn't see it. Yes, it is the tragic tale of Undine, and then the postcard that says Bisbald Moti is "See you soon," signed Mommy. Um, and so going over now to Anna.
I think it's a very simple thing, but the ink drawing of a ballerina, it's it's less about the specific item itself, but what it invokes. Marga always really wanted to go to see a ballet, but she never could get the money together to in order to go to. But Anna, uh, she had uh, seen ballets before she came here back in her home country, and she would make like little sketches of and describe like these ballets for Marga, and like I think just together like they just really wanted to like sort of have like this sort of experience of the outside world together, but that just it was honestly just a dream, really.
Very good. Um, I am doing something real fast. Let's see. So, before we proceed, I am going to assign your grief to each of you. This is actually a mechanic that I've been in communication with Hendrik about. It can be handled in a number of ways. It can either be picked. I mean, like we've seen it handled like either the player gets to pick it, or it's the mistress, decides and picks it for the player, or it's just decided randomly. Maybe shuffle the deck and hand them out. I've had players pick before, so this go around, I'm randomly, deciding it. I have made a random number generator, and what the grief moves are, it's two parts, although you only get to see one thing right now, because there's a mechanic in the game called stress, which we'll explain when we're actually playing. Basically, you are all in your own individual ways affected by Marga's disappearance, and your grief is kind of like a representation of that. The first time you fill out your stress bar, the game calls stressing out, you actually gain access to a new move. Very similar to other Carve from Brindlewood games. You just don't get, your character move at the start of play. You unlock it as things kind of like stack on your shoulders. So I'm going to send these to each of you privately, and it'll be up to you, to reveal them if you want out of character, but they will come up inevitably. So starting with for Anna Basmajian. I'm saying that correctly? Anna Basmajian?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. I mean, y'all can see this on the character keeper, so it's not like it's a big secret, but I'll go ahead and just send this to you, Anna Basmajian. That is yours. You can note that down. let's look at Patrizia. Just copy this down. I'm going to give you this one. And for Tiziana, you get this one. I randomly generated these numbers, so who knows? I was talking with Hendrik before this game started, and really any method of assigning these works. But we were like, it is kind of interesting to have like a randomly assigned element that may like flesh out an aspect of your character. You know, we've all here played Trophy as well, so we're very familiar with like characters being randomly determined and building them off of that. So we'll go off from there. So you have your grief that you can enter onto your sheet now. And we're going to take a break here in just a moment. But before we do, let's return to this prelude. You've each claimed one of these items, reminisced on your relationship to Marga. The other chambermaids, girls much like you, their names are Brigitte, Ava, Ilka, and Judith. They take the remaining items. And the center of the room is empty, and they return to bed. The only ones left sitting here are you three in the silence of the night, holding these mementos of Marga. Anna, why do you promise the others not to quit until you found out what happened to Marga, who did it, and what you can do about it?
I think it really goes into my grief because I feel guilty because like if only I had convinced my parents to send me a little bit more money, I could have gotten Margaret to just experience more, or at least maybe like done something differently and for her to be safe. But that didn't happen. And I just need to know what did happen. Just to, I guess, put ghosts to bed, for me at least. Or maybe to friends that whatever happened to Marga to happening to someone else.
Is that all an internal dialogue, or do you vocalize any of that to Patrizia and Tiziana?
I think the sort of thing I do put out, because that's the internal dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
is that I do promise them that I'll find that I'll find out what happened to Marga, because this injustice can't be allowed to lay to rest. Something needs to be done.
Tiziana, Patrizia, do you have anything to say to that? And what are you thinking and what do you do?
I think Patrizia just furrows her brow a little bit and then takes a cigarette between her lips and then strikes a match, lights it, and just starts thinking on it. Just like doing like a takes a puff, bites on her finger a little bit, bites on her thumb a little bit, takes another puff, and goes, Marga could have lived on her own volition. She was a free spirit. We'll get to the bottom of it, though. And then puts it out after just a couple of puffs and then puts it back in the packet and squirrels it away.
Tiziana is running her hands over the small journal that she's bound very tightly with some twine so as to keep it sealed. And She looks at the two of them and says, I need to know for myself.
And that marks a pact made. The three of you regard one another, see the looks in your eyes. Tomorrow, and you go to bed. Let's take a 5-minute break. And when we come back, we will begin the actual phases of play. All right, we are going to begin playing. As with usual procedure for really playing any game, playtest especially, we are, the four of us, familiar with kind of like learning the mechanics as we go, and I'll kind of introduce things as they come up. I'd say something important to keep in mind, just like to frame your mind, like around the themes of this game is, it's an investigation. Keep in mind that you are in a rigid hierarchy and you have things expected of you, and stepping out of line has consequences. So it's like whatever investigation you want to take, make sure you frame it around the notion of like you are effectively stepping on eggshells. Investigating during the day might be dangerous in terms of, getting interfered with or seen. Investigating during the night is easier, but the night is more dangerous than the daytime. So we'll explore that as we play. But first, we're going to begin the dawn phase. And after a full night's sleep, Miss Pfeiffer gathers you all in the morning after breakfast and doesn't remark on the previous evening whatsoever. Indeed, true to her word, is treating it like she never said anything at all, because Marga doesn't exist. She never existed. There is no problem at the Genziana Hotel. And your breakfast with the other chambermaids is much the same. Patrick, the cook, stares at you all while you eat breakfast. And following that, Miss Pfeiffer just begins to go about the usual morning announcements regarding the state of the hotel, the guests, and things that need doing. But I have no special assignments to hand out. What that means in this game is during the dawn phase, Miss Pfeiffer, if she wants to request something specifically or punish you or just have anything interesting happen, the GM, the mistress, will be like, you have been assigned this task today, and you are expected to do that. But today, that's not the case narratively. So while Miss Pfeiffer is handing out these tasks, I am not the one assigning them to you. You will each pick what your task for the day is. We have a list on our character keeper of daily tasks. So take a look at that. And we're going to go around here. This time we'll do reverse character keeper order just to keep things flexible and fun. So Tiziana, when Miss Pfeiffer is going around the next morning assigning your tasks for the day, what are you doing? What is yours?
I'm going to draw water at the well.
Very simple. What about Patrizia?
I think we see Patrizia is like, because most of the time Patrizia is all the time being like, not well, not the well, not the well, because Patrizia's big, strong, used to work for her blacksmith father, gathering water for the kiln. So always on the well. This one time, I think you noticed that Patrizia is almost a little irritated, not irritated, but just like furrows her brow again, like she's thinking, because like you're like, did she want the well this time? But instead, she is getting put on something that is much more her speed and preference, which is cutting and peeling vegetables in the kitchen.
Gotcha. And what about Anna?
I think Anna is a little bit thankful that she's getting this task because it allows her a little bit more flexibility when it comes to investigation. She is turning over the guest rooms.
Very nice. All right. So that settles the dawn. Let's move in to the day phase. So since there's not a special assignment, I do not necessarily need to immediately frame the scene rigidly. Everything in this game otherwise is a collaboration between the girls and the mistress. Like the day phase of other CFB games, this allows for a lot of freedom, a slower pace. but we're all going to remember that any clue might come at the cost of time wasted, work left undone, and punishment by the head of staff. Who? I'm going to kind of defer collaboratively to y'all. Which scene do we want to focus on first? Tiziana drawing water at the well, Patrizia cutting vegetables in the kitchen, or Anna moving through the halls to turn over guest rooms?
Uh, how do y'all feel about kind of like if you want to follow like camera movement? Do
Mm,
y'all want to go from outside in, like
Mm.
downstairs up, or do you want to go from like
mm.
upstairs down to outstairs, or like mix it all up?
Ooh, that's a really good. That's a really fun idea. Like
Mhm.
we have like this like zooming crane shot of
Yeah.
like from the surrounding forest approaching the Genziana Hotel
Mhm.
in through the
Hmm.
front doors of the lobby and
Yeah.
moving like through the halls to like track
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
different girls. Oh,
Yeah.
that kind of fucks. I'm
yeah.
into that. Um, I actually really like the sound of that.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Let's start with that then. Then we will begin, I guess, on the outer edge. Just start with uh Tiziana, because you're drawing water at the well. So we come in seeing the surrounding dense pine forest, and as we push closer to the hotel, we see around the perimeter the uh, uh, the garden and the water well. So Wenzel Grossel, the gardener, maintains patches of herbs, vegetables, and of course gentians. His shed behind the building we see is filled with dried specimens. The well the nuns dug forever ago lies some way down the mountain. So we push past uh, uh, Wenzel as he's going about through his shack, and we follow um, Tiziana as she is walking down the mountain path to reach the old well. What's going through your mind as you are out in the open air? This doesn't quite count as being in the pine forest, where mostly people gather tinder. This is, like a path down to the well. So it's, you're kind of surrounded on both sides by the dense darkness of the looming forest. Behind you, the sloping mountain and the Genziana, and you're walking down to gather water at the well.
We see Titiana with the uh sort of, I guess, yoke. What is it called? The
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
that
like
they
the.
hold
Mm,
to, yeah. So you're walking down with the empty buckets, and the camera zooms in on her face, and we're able to hear her internal monologue. Uh, and she is thinking, now, where was it? Where was it that we saw her? It was, I think, either near the well or the gardens. I can't remember which one. So, go to the well anyway. I suppose we'll start there.
mm. Yeah, you are walking for a time and you approach the well, and even before you're right up next to it, um you're not you see that you're not alone. You can see that there's another person out by the well, and loitering is one of the guests you recognize, Barnaby Lawrence, a sort of traveling youth. um he is, let me find his little handout here. Yeah, he's he's a lad from Britain. He's an Englishman. He's got a bit of a baby face going on. His hair is, oiled curls, and he's wearing a pair of silk stockings. And he is loitering around the well this morning, seemingly just kind of like leaning up against it, fiddling with a couple of pine needles between his fingers, rather bored. But when you're coming down the pathway and you two regard each other, Barnaby gets this smile on his face as he's leaning against the well, and just kind of like watches you as you approach. What do you do?
As soon as Tiziana notices that there's a guest at the well, she immediately straightens her posture and sort of fixes her dress a little bit, makes sure that some of the wrinkles are less noticeable, and puts on a very convincing but fake smile and approaches and says, "Ah, hello, Mr.
Lawrence,
Lawrence. Sorry. It's
how is Tiziana's English?
that's a good question.
Or does she even speak English, or does she only speak a different tongue? And
I think her English is good, but still fairly rough, like she's very conversational, but not necessarily fluent.
mm, hmm understood. He just nods at you, accepting your attempts at English. And do you just begin to carry out your task, or what do you do?
I think she does begin to, draw the water up, but as she does so, she looks over this man and she says, are you out here for water?
Yes, I am out here for water. I was indeed waiting for someone to grab me a fresh drink. You all make a habit of coming down here this early, don't you? To gather water. He's like talking a little like slowly and enunciative, since he acknowledges that you only have like a loose grasp on English, and maybe he even intersperses a few words in your native tongue to try and like nudge you, being like, water.
Ah, well, I'll have some ready here in a moment. Do you need anything else while I am here?
He looks at you for a moment and just, a little patronizingly, but still with that kind of, you know, uh, uh, smile on his face, just nods and says, "Yes, water." Now
Understood.
let's paint the scene about something real quick, since we're down here, um, because as you begin to fasten the buckets to draw water, looking up at the wellhead's beams, paint the scene for everyone is what carvings of Margas can you find in the wellhead's beams? Imagine that the chambermaids have all carved things into the wellhead at one point. What has she carved in here?
Um, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go ahead and just take the leap here. There are some anatomically incorrect, for comedy, phalluses. Um, just that it seems like that's very rudimentary, but slightly engorged, more so than you're used to.
To continue on that trend, I think there are not only that there is like for a bunch of like other girls' initials uh on the well sort of beams. There is a sort of a hmm, tally marks underneath their initials for each and every one. Marga has four.
There is a very rudimentary carving of Miss Pfeiffer bent over a table with a rod on her butt, and she is either crying out or moaning. It's not certain which.
I love it. So as you're standing there drawing water from the well, Barnaby just kind of leaning lackadaisically against its stones, watching you, his eyes flicking to the surrounding forest, just so dreadfully bored. And he kind of like cranes his head to look at you a little bit more as you're working, and he says, "You have very welcoming eyes."
Thank you. I got them from my mother. Um, do be careful. The well is old.
Hmm?
The well, it is old. Be careful putting your weight on it.
Oh, I see. Well, Uncle Briegel tells me that the nuns built it sturdy, so well, better safe than sorry. Are you almost done? I'm rather thirsty.
Yes, the first bucket should be about ready.
And yeah, as you get the bucket up after like a laborious few minutes, he just gives like a little exhalation and just walks up to the bucket and just dips his hands right into it and brings it up to his lips and begins to like drink from it and taking in its coolness. He goes, it's lovely. Thank you.
Um, uh, okay.
Mm. And he just kind of gives you this look. Something is on his expression before he reaches in to take another handful of water, raises it to his lips, not breaking eye contact, tilting his hands back and taking a long draw. As he sighs once more and says, "Be seeing you." And he just begins to walk back up the path towards the hotel. We will push past him and go meet another one of our girls milling about her tasks this day. Specifically, we're going to find ourselves over by the kitchen, um, and which is attached to a little curing basement of its own. Um, this is where we find Patrizia working, cutting and peeling vegetables. Um, in the morning, it smells of freshly baked bread. There's a large hatch on the floor that leads down to a basement brimming with salt and sausages. This place is the domain of the hotel's chef, Patrick Orso. He is built like an oak, eyebrows singed, and in various parts of his skin, arms, maybe a little bit at the neck, you can make out these like blue tattoos. Patrick is Hungarian. He actually brought some spicy Hungarian cuisine to the hotel. He's a great cook. Everybody knows this, but he's also very quiet and can have like fits of rage where he throws things. Everyone knows, every girl, I should say, knows that every time you eat breakfast, he stares at you all from a distance. And he's just um, uh, kind of like working quietly in the background as you're here cutting and peeling vegetables. Let's paint the scene about the kitchen. What tools and instruments does Patrick leave lying around?
Um, a handcrafted apple peeler, not handcraft like homemade, like he crafted it himself, apple peeler, where it has the spin wheel and everything with the handle. So you just put the apple onto a spit and then you just rotate it and it peels the apple for you. Only he's allowed to use it.
I think he just leaves his knives out all over the fucking place. He says it's because he needs to be able to reach them wherever he is, but it's probably because he doesn't want to put them away.
People have tried to complain in the past, but it really has not gone over well, especially with his temper. But he leaves cigarette butts everywhere.
Kind of like a chain smoker. So the air not only smells of baked bread, but also kind of that underlying smell of tobacco. Um, Tell us a little bit about your work, Patrizia, how it's going this morning as you're cutting and peeling vegetables.
Yeah, Patrizia is doesn't like every time Patrizia has this job, Patrick is very protective of that goddamn peeler. Because at one point I think Patrizia heard him say, um, hard work builds character at some point. Maybe in Hungarian, maybe not, maybe in broken English. So Patrizia has set up on the opposite side of the room from Patrick and just has a bucket in between her legs with her like gown a little bit rolled and tucked, so that they're almost like pants. She has them tied off so they're like pants so she can work a little bit, but she's not showing off anything to this leerer. Um, and she's just sitting across with a wooden handled knife, a small little like whittling knife, and is just slowly peeling a length at a time, doing some whittling to get the ends.
Hmm.
And then like or like if it's something where she just needs to snap like to cut the tip off, she'll do it very quickly, not very dramatic but very quickly, and it's just like focusing on her work but occasionally making sure that Patrick is not leering at her for too long.
Hmm. Yeah. You're not alone necessarily. Entering the kitchen with you is another chambermaid. This is Ilka. She is somewhat like nervous girl. And she wears her raven black hair up in a bun. She got put on mincemeat duty today, so she is kind of just looking a little miserable and is being instructed to work the meat grinder in the basement, just kind of putting the various cuts of meat in there to help get out the minces for either pies or sausages. And every so often she comes up, with a dish full of ground meat. Her hands, are, wringing them out a little bit as, the day continues, and just the hours of working a crank, kind of rubbing at her shoulder, rubbing at her elbows, just bringing up the mincemeat as is needed. The work continues. What's presently on your mind, though, as time is passing?
um she keeps thinking about Marga and
Mm-hmm.
how it's like a sweep it under the rug kind of thing, you know? It's like we're not gonna be too concerned with Marga. Marga doesn't exist anymore. Marga left. And that's been eating at Patrizia all morning. And then she keeps thinking about fucking Patrick's eyes and how it's always just like those fucking like they're almost just like drills, daggers that
Mm-hmm.
stare right in the soul of you. And so Patrizia is going to pick up her basket and
Mm-hmm.
her bundle of vegetables, and is going to slowly move around next to Patrick, where he's working, and
Mm-hmm.
is going to start like very deftly and quickly peeling the vegetables, and not in Hungarian, but I think maybe German might be the closest approximation of like language that's like a interlocking like overlink for them because Patrizia doesn't know English at all. Is just going to be like, Patrick, you see things, right?
He kind of like glances his head. He glances over at you, his
Hmm.
large head, not really fully turning, but you can see him glance at the corner of your eye. And he goes back to, looking down at his hands, which is currently like kneading out with great strength. A ball of dough and that he's been pulling things to and out, like in and out of the oven.
Hmm.
Slaps the dough onto a tray. He's dusting flour around here, clapping his hands. He does not answer you, but you can tell just by the look, the
Hmm.
stern kind of just like glance, that it was Patrick's acknowledgement of like he's listening, but he's not necessarily deigning it with a response yet. Kind of turns his back to you and carries over the dough to the oven.
I don't know if you know this, but some of the girls are scared of it, but not me. It reminds me of this boy that worked at a bookshop across from my family's home, and he would just sit out of his window and just stare every day at me and my father while we worked, but mostly at me. And she's going to be very much using a cucumber to be peeling it and is being very deft, not even looking at it, but like kind of looking over it at him and saying, and every day he would sit there and stare at me, and I could never tell what he was doing behind that window, but I knew it was something naughty. and he would look at me bend and pick up buckets of water and move bundles of wood into kilns and everything. And I knew his little eyes one day would get pecked out. Hoped, prayed, and I never got the chance to. So I was wondering, for somebody that sees so much, did you manage to catch sight of Marga last night? And just sitting there and very aptly just like depthly just peeling these vegetables.
I think we're going to trigger a move before we get to the actual investigatory part.
Okay.
This is actually a thing that I've talked with Hendrik about, and we've like had some playtests back and forth, like where we there's some like different like ways of gating things. In this circumstance, though, I think when like I'm going to trigger this something a little bit more behind a few barriers, because there's a move called step out of line. I'm going to read it here. When you try to get your way or fail to conform by acting like a flirt, you roll with charm. By acting like a know-it-all, roll with smarts. By acting like a troublemaker, roll with guts. Before rolling, say what you're afraid might happen if this doesn't work out, and then we'll take the results from there. This feels like being like a flirt, and you're doing something very suggestive. And very much stepping out of line here, failing to conform to your image. So what are you afraid might happen if this doesn't work out?
I'm afraid that he's going to take it the wrong way and think that I'm suggesting that I'm going to flay his member. I think instead of like it coming across suggestive, it's going to come across threatening.
That's fun. Okay. It sounds like you're leaning towards the flirt angle, though. Like you were being suggestive. Gotcha. So then you can roll plus charm, so 2d6, and then your charm modifier.
It's a -1.
Oh, okay.
We like dancing on a knife's edge, one might say. I rolled a bone and a wooden die, and it didn't fuck me over. Yeah, that is an 8 -1. That's a 7.
All right. So on a 7 to 9, you actually get to choose. Either things go your way, or you ensure there are no consequences for acting up. And then I will describe what it looks like. Now, in the spirit of CFB games, I will, of course, narrate what it looks like. You do have the option to bump up the results. So let's talk about that real quick, just of what that looks like, because the Girls of the Genziana Hotel does not have the equivalent of masks, keys, crowns as other CFB games. This game has stress. And what you can do is you can spend stress 1 for 1 to increase the result by a point. So if you wanted to increase this to a 10, you need to spend 3 points of stress. You have 6 slots of stress available. When you hit all of them, you stress out and things happen. In the spirit of like, we narrate the outcome before we decide to mark, increase the result. So let's just start from there with 7 to 9. You get to choose. Either this goes as intended, Patrick takes us a little flirtatiously and whatever that entails, but there will be consequences for acting up, or you can ensure that there are no consequences, but Patrick is not receptive to what this was.
Let's take the interesting one, the first part. Let's see what consequences enact because of my flirtations with this worker.
I'm into it. Let's see that there are no consequences for acting up. How do I want to structure this first? Because I have 2 thoughts in mind. I think it's I got one in mind. I'll keep it pretty simple. Is that while that conversation is going on, the door opens, and one of the other chambermaids, I think this one will be I think this is Ava, a very pretty girl. She has brown braids. And she walks in and sees you rather, suggestively working to peel this cucumber as you're very close to Patrick, looking at him and kind of at the tail end of what you narrated. And, she's coming in to probably, grab some bread that a guest wants brought to their room. And she kind of like, stops and at the fringes, and a blush comes to her cheek. So it kind of like interrupts the conversation. And you look over at her. Patrick is not looking over at her. He actually froze, like stock still, like right, like and when he was like moving away, and his head's only slightly tilted in your direction. So she's just looking at his back, but you two make eye contact. And she has this like confused expression on on her face, and she just very quickly, with the redness, like turns and leaves. Ava is like Ava's like a fucking sieve, that like someone's gonna find out, and like gossip will spread. Something will happen because of that.
This is normally gossip is not something that Patrizia typically likes to be involved in, but this is an abnormal day. And so Patrizia just logs that for later. It's like, I'm gonna have to talk to her later. And just looks over at Patrick, try to play unfazed, and
I will say also as part of that consequence, just to say that you can take a point of stress. Just because that little nugget of like, oh, you're gonna deal with Ava, talk to her or something.
Gotta have to deal with this, yeah.
But as per the result, if we're rolling with that, you think things go your way here. And we'll come back to the scene in a moment. We just see Patrick, slide the dough into the oven and like lean up against the bar, still not looking at you, against the counter, I should say. And his head kind of cocked to the side. And then he does turn around and he look at you. And there is still that stoic, harsh edge to him, but there's something in his eyes. It's a pain or a longing. It's hard to read off the cuff, but he doesn't seem to lash out. But we'll come back to the scene. And meanwhile, Anna, you are turning over beds for the various guest rooms. We see you busying through the hallways of the respective guest wings. The medieval nuns once walked these halls. The difference is being that there's now a cobalt runner that unfurls past the various doors. Both wings have a dead end and are fairly low on windows, so there are like it's pretty dim. At night there are like oil lanterns that help light the place up, but right now you're just moving about. But you're turning over a guest room. Would you actually like to have a say in which guest you are currently in the room of? We have a list of them, and feel free to ask any questions.
Yes, I think it's probably the Von Miller's rooms. So Mr. Matthias von Miller and his wife Regina Spinola von Miller.
Yeah, let's talk about the loving couple, shall we? So Regina de Spinola von Miller is the wife of Matthias von Miller. Matthias is a pale, freckled man with almond eyes. He has a habit of wearing creamy white shirts. They are spending the summer in the mountains because Matthias suffers from asthma, and they kind of like spend like the seasonal to be in a better environment so it doesn't worsen. He is a German man and also a flirt when his wife isn't in the room. This is his first time at the Genziana, and the way you understand it is he's probably been to many hotels, never more than once. But an interesting note from our Every Girl Knows section is that Matthias von Miller was flirting with Marga behind his wife's back, and Regina von Miller views every woman as competition. Regina has these luscious curls, a very regal nose, and she's dressed in decadent jewelry. She's a woman who emanates pride and class. And you are turning over their room. So let's talk about the room. Um, New walls were built to, and covered in plaster and arsenic blue wallpaper. There are 16 rooms divided over the two wings. All of them contain a large bed and closet, some seats, a vanity, and a desk. Uh, the hotel has two baths with their own like separate rooms, kind of one in each wing. Let's paint the scene about this one in particular. In what way have the Von Millers made the room their own?
Oh, she's brought art from their home to hang up on the walls. And like portraits and landscapes. And this isn't like a Rose from the Titanic where she like collects art and like deals it and stuff like that. No, this is she has just brought stuff from home to make it feel more like home, like portraits and stuff.
Because this is effectively the 19th century and asthma is not really understood very well, but like again, like there is like a very like principal ashtray made of crystal that uh Mr. Von Miller likes to use in order to treat his asthma.
I think that all of the bedding has been changed and brought in separately, and they have left explicit instructions for the chambermaids on a very specific way that it must be washed.
I love it. So Anna, when you knock at the door, the one to answer is Regina von Miller, and your chin's a little raised, and there's a momentary flash of a scowl as she sees you standing there, but it's quickly replaced by just the haughty, pride and class, as she steps aside to let you into the room. And her eyes judgmentally linger on your unruly hair in
Mhm.
comparison to her own luscious curls. Matthias is seated at the little desk. He's got like a little pile of like German folk tales that he's just kind of like flipping through idly. And and the windows open, letting in some morning air. He's got his little ashtray, the paintings, which haven't really been hung, but they're kind of like propped around here. It seems like Regina's in the middle of trying to figure out like where to best put them. And Regina, as you start to go about turning over the room, she says, "Girl, I have forgotten your name. We need our linens changed. They smell. I don't know of what. Just make sure they're gone in the next hour. Can you do that?
Absolutely, Mrs. Von Miller.
Then see it done."
Hmm.
She kind of stands there and just watching. How are you going about your job?
At the sort of insistence that the linens need to be changed right now, like I immediately redirect my effort to to them. I'm sort of inspecting them just to like see what could be quote unquote causing the smell. Um,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
just in case if it's the sort of like paranoia of a jealous wife, or is it actually something going on here?
Oh, that's fun. I like that. I don't know. It would be kind of cool if we trigger the clue finding move for this one and we stick your nose in. Quite literally, sticking your nose in. It's the name of the move. Here, let's read that. So when you search for clues to further the investigation, this is going to be with careful examination. So you're going to roll plus smarts.
Yeah, that's with a +2.
Hell yeah.
That is a 10.
10 total. Fantastic. Yeah, you will find a clue. Let me consult my clue list here and see what we have for you as you kind of like smell the sheets. Let's take a look here, and we can keep track of this on our mystery tab. As I should have mentioned a moment ago at the start, so there are questions to answer on this mystery. There are three total that we do one after the other, but the first one is why has Marga disappeared so suddenly? Complexity 4 question. And then you can unlock the following one. Let me take a look here of these clues. Very smart cookie, Anna. Mm. Let's see. I think it smells very earthy. And you don't see a lot of signs of filth on it, but it does smell like someone was like digging around in dirt and then slept in this bed. And that kind of like earthy scent kind of followed with them, and it like lingers on the sheets, which again is all the more interesting because you don't see signs of dirt on the sheets. So that is your clue. As you begin to like gather up their linens, what do you do? Then you just move on to the next room?
Yes, I think yes, that I'm very sorry that your lidded Mrs. Von Miller has this smell in it. I'm not sure where I really can place it. But,
Regina looks at you and she says, are you just repeating my words back to me?
No, I'm just curious as to what could have caused it. It would help to get the smell out of it.
Are you
Ma'am?
dumb? I already told you I don't know what caused it. I just want them cleaned and replaced.
Of course, of course. Sorry for causing any offense.
She gets a stiff, rigid expression for a moment before Matthias, just kind of like with a coy smile, gets up from the desk, and he like walks over to like touch the side of Regina's arm and gives you a more than like a moment's glance as he just says, "Do not mind my wife. She is so dreadfully high strung before she's had her morning breakfast." Goes and like places a kiss on her hand and begins to like make himself a little excuse to go leave the room, ostensibly to like maybe go get something from the dining hall or go put in the order with the front desk so that they can have something brought to their room for her to rest here, and begins to see himself out. But Regina just has that rigid stare at you, somewhere between consternation and like pitying. It's hard to say. What do you do?
I don't think I really have anything else much to say with her because, like, I think she'll just bite my head off, honestly.
Absolutely. I love it. We'll come back to you. Let's go check back in with Tiziana, who you had finished drawing water from the well, and you're now carrying it back up. You can feel the weight of it against your shoulders, but as you mentioned, you're not exactly weak of body. But how's the work going as you're kind of carrying the hefty buckets on this wooden pole?
It goes slowly but steadily. She is specifically just plotting out every step and making sure that she doesn't trip or run into anything that might cause an issue that she might need to navigate some way or another. But she is also making a slight detour to the gardens because that is the last place that she saw Marga.
Yeah. And you come back up like the trail, and you're up by the various patches that Wenzel Grossel, the gardener, maintains. Various herbs, vegetables, some of them recently pulled from the earth and are now being peeled and cut by Patrizia. You can see Wenzel himself moving between his shed and the garden plots. And let's talk about Wenzel a little bit. So let me find his section. Yeah, so Wenzel Grossel, he when as he moves between like the shed and the garden, he walks with a very pronounced limp. Um, he's always wearing the same thing. He just has a vest and shirt sleeves. And even though you're not up next to him now, you always equate him with the smell of lavender. And he is just beginning to go about moving between the garden, tending to the gentians, some various herbal patches, kind of got spots of dirt all over him. Um, you know a little bit about him in your time here, that he is a veteran of the Napoleonic Wars, which even for even then he was pretty old. He was a middle-aged foot soldier in the army of Francis the First, and probably sustained many wounds, some that you can't see. But as you said that this was the last place you saw Marga. What's the context there? What's the memory?
She remembers seeing her in Wenzel's shed, not doing well. There's not really much of a reason to be in there. So she was not sure what she was doing. Tiziana was gathering tinder when she noticed, and when she began to approach, she must have made some sort of noise because Marga fled before she could ask her anything.
Mm.
But at this point, she walks over and she says, Buongiorno, Wenzel. Do you need water for your plants today?
He he is like kneeling down by a patch of herbals and glances up at you. Um, you can see that kind of like haunted, distant look off in his eye as he flicks from you to the buckets and then back down to the earth. And he says, uh, "Yes, that would be nice. Um, I have my watering can in the shed. Would you mind topping it off?"
Yes. Good. And Tiziana will go into the shed, fill up the watering can, and with the water that was used by that guy with his fucking dirty ass gross hands, uh, and will take the moment to sort of just rifle through this guy's shit, see if
Mm-hmm.
Marga left anything around.
Yeah, let's go ahead and stick your nose in, shall we? Um, this is going to be uh let's see here. It's probably going to be with smarts, but I'm just yeah, it's smarts because it's thorough examination.
Okay. This is going to be with a -2, I think, or
Minus one.
-1.
Hmm?
Woof, that is a 5.
Hmm. Fantastic. Okay. So on a miss, there is trouble, and I react. We'll come
There
back to the
will
scene.
be trouble.
I'm gonna think on that, and I'll come back to this in a moment. Patrizia, um, you're standing there, and Patrick is looking at you now, with that kind of mixture of like a harsh stoicism, but with like a little bit of softness or pain touching at the eyes. Um, and he breathes in, pretty deeply through his nose as if steadying himself, and he's continuing to not speak. But you can tell that like he is clearly if not receptive is the wrong word. It's not like he is now like flirting back with you, but it's kind of disarmed him. And there's kind of this openness. It is kind of so you can proceed un unaffected with whatever you wish to do next. So with that kind of look registered on him, and now that Ava's left the room, what do you do?
He's on the back foot, so Patrizia is going to stand up and grab the bucket and go, Patrick, my arms are sore. Can you open the door for me to the pantry?
Mm. He just kind of gives a slight nod and walks over to the hatch that leads down to the curing room and opens it up.
Um, Patrizia is going to uh make her way towards the hatch and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And is going to um start to make her way over to the hatch with everything, and she's going to like stop and just make like a strain and then bend down to pick up the vegetable bucket again, giving plenty of rear end to Patrick, and then picking up and going, would you mind carrying it for me down? It's just so heavy and you're very Hungarian.
Mm. um, I kind of want to trigger a move here
Hmm.
of like work something out.
Hmm.
Because like clearly you're putting him to the task and
Yeah.
you're getting something you want from him. And as for the move, it says when you cut a deal to get what you want, define your leverage and roll with guts. I think we clearly know your leverage is the fact that you had like kind of disarmed him and are now like pulling along at him using this
Hmm.
your sexuality almost as like, because again, it's not like he is like now like looks like he's lusting after you, but it's
Yeah.
almost like you've like lulled him in some way and he's just kind of now being fed along like carrot on a stick.
Okay.
um so go ahead and roll with guts, and on a hit you will get it. You'll do that he'll continue to follow along with
Perfect.
you, but if you roll 7 to 9, things will happen, let alone a miss.
That's I need to roll with these fucking bone and wooden dice more. That is a 6 and a 6 plus 2. That is a 14.
Holy shit. Plus 2 from guts. Plus 1, right?
Yes. Yeah, plus
It's
2 for
plus 1 is guts on yours. Oh wait, no, you're plus 2. That's right. What am I talking about? I
yes.
was looking at
Yeah.
Tiziana.
No, you're good.
Holy shit. Okay. So on a hit, you get it.
Hmm.
So effectively, like you basically can like lead Patrick along like this, by leveraging this constantly. So you can like just get what he wants. He seems it's almost like and maybe like if you have a more interesting idea of how to frame this, let me know. But it's almost like it's not the like the him like wanting something out of you and pursuing it. It's more like you being like this is like makes him passive almost. Like like there's something about it that's almost like, I don't know, like hypnotic might be the right word, but he seems to just be going with it, and he just wordlessly, you know, just grabs it from you and descends down into the curing chamber to take it down there for you.
When he does that, when he like grabs it and he starts making his way down the chamber, I imagine it's like a hatch where he has to walk backwards with the basket down a ladder.
Yeah.
I'm standing above him, and I'm going to say, oops. And I'm going to undo how my gown was tied up around my legs so that he gets a full view of under her gown, her work dress. And I'm just gonna look down at him while he's like probably staring, and I'm just gonna say, Patrick, a lot of strange things are starting to happen here. And if you tell me what those big eyes of what strange things your big eyes see, I'll show you some strange things myself.
Oh, very good. We'll come back to this scene. Anna, you take the linens down to the laundry room for to get them clean, but also to get some new linens for the Von Miller's room. Let's talk about the laundry room. There are these boiling tubs, clothes wringers, ironing boards, shelves of starch, and a large stove. This is a place of function where the linens are heated, treated, mangled, and flattened into pristine, pure, unwrinkled whites. Currently, Judith, one of the other chambermaids, is pushing a uniform to the bottom of the pile. She's like mending. She's working on the patches and all that. Let's paint the scene about the laundry room, though. What does the laundry room's strange mixture of bleach, florals, and smoke remind you of?
Oh, I have a terrible, terrible idea. Uh, and I won't like extrapolate even further than just saying this. It reminds Anna of a hospital room.
Um, I'm gonna say the smell of a holy water cistern.
I think it reminds Tiziana of her childhood.
Mm. Anna, so Judith is a young woman, even compared to the chambermaid. She has a bonnet that can only barely contain her massive red curls. She's just like pleasantly like humming to herself as she's mending uniforms, and like pushing the laundry through the ringers, and just kind of like smiles and like nods at you as you're bringing the sheets over and drop them in the pile. And she just kind of like acknowledges you with this nod and just continues like humming, her little feet kicking. I say she's young, but she's still like maybe like 19 or even 18, kicking her little feet as she's just going about mending the uniforms. And she is like, any troubles?
Well, as long as that they don't leave this room, but I'm still just very concerned with what happened to Marga.
Hmm? Who?
Don't play coy. You know who I talk about.
um I'm sorry, Anna. Did I say something wrong?
Mhm. Hmm. Nothing. You didn't say anything wrong.
Okay. She kind of like looks down at her uniform that she's mending. Still kind of like a look of confusion on her face, and she like looks up at you and says, "Sorry, you were saying something about a guest, or sorry, I didn't catch the name."
Marga.
Marga. She kind of like gives her head like a little shake and looks at you for answers.
She used to work here.
Oh, like before I started in a different season.
You could say that.
Okay. What about her?
She just left so suddenly and just never said where she was going.
Huh.
Um, but the curious thing was that what she left behind.
Oh, she's like looking at the uniform now. She's telling him, what did she leave behind?
Oh, well, bloody stocking. And I'm just very, very curious as to how that came to be.
Hmm. First of all, I'm gonna say that just the nature of Judith like forgetting Marga was ever really here, or even like so it seems like just mark a point of stress for that
Yeah.
being a thing that you deal with right now.
Yeah, I think it's less that like because of like
Mhm.
Judith's age, it
Mhm.
seems as though like our Miss Pfeiffer, she really has her thumb on Judith as to like
Mhm.
who's under control, and it's just really more frustrating to Anna than like being scary.
Sure. Let's I think we, because um I'm gonna say let's have you stick your nose in here first.
Mm.
I could see a reality where the way that you press that situation may have been stepping out of line, but I don't think so. I like this kind of leaving it as an open-ended thing as to like did she actually forget or is she just pretending? Who knows? Um, but let's say that you're gonna roll with I could see this being charm because you're technically trying to like get her to actually no, I'd say smart because questioning, right? Like it's like
Mhm.
you're less trying to get her to open up and you're more of like yes, just like asking certain questions and like leaving this
Mhm.
breadcrumb trail for her. That's the impression I got from you.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead and roll.
It's a 5, even with a +2.
Incredible. Here's what I'm gonna do for you. I'm gonna mm, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do two things because I'm gonna split my reaction into two because this is a miss and I could go a little hard, but I'm gonna actually like soften it a little bit and do a two-part move because there is a reaction I have called take a coin to pay them back later. Um, I have effectively this resource. I can hold off on a consequence and hold on to this a point of a resource. I can have up to three, and I can spend these at any time to do things. I can spend one to immediately introduce a threat. I can spend two to immediately follow through on a danger, but I can never spend like all three at once. So I'm going to take one now from that little conversation. I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm going to say that you hear footsteps behind you. Um, and you don't even need to turn around because like you recognize the way that the heels click against the floor that Miss Pfeiffer stands in the doorway. And Amanda Pfeiffer is the head of staff, a tall woman in her late 40s. And she's also accompanied by the jingle from the ring of keys she wears at her hip. She runs the hotel along with its owner, Mr. Russo. And she is almost like draconian in rooting out laziness, pride, debauchery. Um, and I will tell you right now is that this, because I took a token as part of this, um, this is not her catching you and like hearing you like had been talking about Marga, but she just arrives inconveniently as she appears in the doorway and says um well, actually how does she phrase this? She says, ah, Anna, um I hope you're not loitering. Don't you have linens to return?
I am just doing so right now. I'm just saying hello.
Idle
Just
hands do the devil's bidding.
well, it's about having manners when you come into the room to just say hello first.
Of course, manners are very important, but utmost for the chambermaids and for the guests, propriety and punctuality. We are to move as a well-oiled machine to service the guests' needs. I understand that where you come from, that there is time for pleasantries and idle conversation, but please keep yourself moving. She kind of gives you like the eye as if she's kind of like watching you right now, and rather will be kind of like eyeing you like a little bit, but she's not following you, unless of course you want to bump up your results from a miss to with by marking some stress, because otherwise you do not get a clue.
I probably should bump it up a little bit because I'm gonna bump it up by 2 to get it to a 7.
Okay, very good. So mark 2 points of stress, and instead, there will be a complication either with the clue or when you encounter while investigating. So we blink out past that moment where Miss Pfeiffer arrived and reminded you of your duties and ushered you on. I still owe you this complication, but I am going to give you a clue first. Let's take a look at my list here. Because you were talking about the soiled the clothes. Yep. And
would it be so hard to say that I still like have like that sort of bloody sock?
Oh no, because I'm like Miss Pfeiffer had it, showed it to
yeah.
everyone, and then left the room, so you have no idea where it is because you don't see it around here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say I'll keep the complication pretty simple, which is just that it continues to actually no. I'm gonna take a token. I'm gonna take one token from that. That'll be the complication. I'll pay it back later because I want to stew on that because I want to like let this draw out. But for the clue I owe you, let's take a look here. Yeah. As you're questioning her, right? Like you're asking about like bloodied, soiled clothing and all that. She does have this confused expression, and you have to nudge her and kind of poke her in the right direction more than a few times. But you do get something interesting out of it because she doesn't seem to have any recollection of Marga, or at least is pretending to be that way. And so she doesn't bring up matters of like cleaning bloody clothes, but she does mention something peculiar from the previous night, which I'll remind you all, last night is when this all began anyway. So when Marga when the disappearance was announced. But she was also doing this exact same thing yesterday. Judith was. And she had noticed, prior to heading out to the dormitory for dinner and all that, that someone was up last night hastily washing their clothes. Someone came into the laundry room and rather furtively dashing about. I want to point to someone specifically. So I'm going to say it was someone who makes sense to have been in the staff parts. It's going to be a staff member, one of the staff suspects. So I think I'm going to say it was Nicholas Feldhahn. He is the waiter and bartender. He was hastily washing some of his clothes last night. That's what Judith noticed. Very curious indeed. And then do you go back and take some linens up to continue turning over the guest rooms, or what do you do?
I continue to turn over the guest rooms. Probably when I return the linen, that's probably going to be like one of the last things I do because again, I don't want to go back to that awful wife. She's mean, and like I have no interest in her husband. Like she could keep him.
Yeah. She did say that she wanted them returned within the hour, but it sounds like you're being rather like, I'm going to get to you last, and she was mean, which sounds an awful lot like stepping out of line to me.
Yeah.
Um, so let's first establish what you're afraid might happen if this doesn't work out.
God, Mrs. Piper, Miss Piper is gonna find out about this.
Hmm.
Even though technically I was following the letter of what I was supposed to do, I wasn't doing the spirit of what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, indeed. You made her wait. This sounds like you're acting like a troublemaker, so you're gonna roll with guts.
Yeah, that's with a -1.
Mm-hmm.
God, 6.
We'll get back to you. Tiziana, you rolled a miss. Let's talk about that. So I have your let's see, how do I want to react here? Because on a miss, there's trouble in the let's see. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this twofold. I'm gonna give you it's a little two-part complication. One, mark a point of stress. If I was going whole hog on this, I'd be like, you take 2 stress, but for this, we'll say 1. Because the other thing I'm adding on to this is that um um uh Wenzel shows up. Like, he appears in the doorway, and he sees you, like, looking around and rifling through things. However, he does not perceive this as your like looting his stuff and, like, going through his belongings looking for something in particular. You actually see that, he kind of like stops and like stares at you, and you freeze and you look at him and you feel that little spike of anxiety perhaps. And Wenzel kind of just, like, after sitting there looking at you for a moment, steps into the shed, and kind of like, nudges you off to the side and begins going through the various dried herbs. And he mutters, for you to hear, "What ails you?" It seems that he is misinterpreting this as there's something wrong, like that you need some, like, herbal remedy, and that you're looking for something, or that, maybe a guest wants something. He is nudging into this under the assumption that it's like, you need help with something right now. Okay, what do you need? You're muted.
Yes, I am. So if I bump this up with stress, do I still take the 1 stress from the complication as well?
It depends on how if I want to even keep that same complication, or I'll go with a different one. Um, because you rolled a what, a 5?
Yeah, so I do want a clue, but I also like this complication.
Here's what I'll say: if you want to bump it up to become a 7 to 9, I will say that you can spend the requisite stress, and I'll keep the complication of Wenzel showing up. And it'll be the exact same, because it's, I kind of split a harder reaction into two softer reactions. So I'll keep it as, like, the one soft reaction where he shows up and is, like, starting to, like, busy himself and, like, look around and interrogate you on something he perceives the situation to be.
Okay, got it. So 2 total then.
Yep, you'll spend 2 stress, unless you wanted to spend 5 stress and bump it up to a flat 10. But it sounds like you like this complication, so
I considered it.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. So then he's still going to show up, but yeah, I'm going to say that we're going to keep it exactly as it is, where it's like, before you found anything, he shows up and is like, he said, like, what ails you, and is kind of already beginning to, like, root around and expecting your answer. I will give you the clue as the scene unfolds.
I think she sort of refocuses her efforts catching on to what is happening to a specific side of things where she knows that there are some sort of remedies or something along the lines. And she says, uh, um, the, uh, scusi, clearly, like, stammering over things, trying to think of something on the fly, but using her poor English as a way to buffer that.
Mhm.
She says, uh, a guest is complaining about the stomach hurting from one of the teas that we had earlier in the morning.
Mhm. Um, he sighs with a sort of irritation that you can immediately read as like, oh, this is something he's already like heard or dealt with very recently. So clearly, like there's something going on here that's already along this note. And you just invented it on the fly, so that's interesting. He just like nods and begins to go through the various medicinal herbs. And he says, what I really need is assistance in processing all of these. um, and he looks at you and he says, I tell you what, I will make it worth your while if you wish to help me carry about some of this, gesturing to the various herbs. He's effectively asking you right now, is like, listen, he'll make it worth your while. Maybe he'll cover a problem for you, or maybe he'll, handle, make sure that you don't get fallback of this. But basically, he's like, hey, I'm commissioning you to help me process these herbs, and that will take time. You
Uh,
know,
yes, okay. Let me deliver the rest of the water, and I
mm.
will be back.
He grunts, and you step out, but not before you do catch. You notice something, which among the very, it is a stocked garden shed, medicinals all over the place, and dried specimens. And there is something on like a little shelf that you look over, and it is clearly not an herbal thing that he harvested or even would be grown here, because up on the shelf, tucked behind some of his dried specimens, you spot a little bottle of morphine powder. And then you see yourself back into the hotel to deliver the water before you eventually return. And the rest of your day is spent assisting Wenzel in, processing some of his various medicinal herbs, him giving you some insight and kind of explaining the processes involved there. But you kind of find yourself in a position to do that. Patrizia, you just levied something quite interesting against Patrick. And before I proceed narrating the scene, I want to ask, ultimately, what is your goal here? What are you hoping to achieve by doing all of this?
I want Patrick to be my little spy. I want Patrick to be like in a trade treat. You know, you give
Mm-hmm.
me a morsel and I'll give you a little morsel, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. So give me something interesting, I'll give you. The new girl rule of give a cookie, get a cookie.
Yeah, I love it. I think because you already successfully rolled to like work something out, that effectively it's like this is like the deal that's cut, right? Is like you're doing this and he responds accordingly in following your whims. Um, though I will say that because you opened the door and the curing chamber is below. I mean, Ilka is down there doing work and stuff. What if she overhears this, right? Like that's it was one thing when the hatch was closed and she was down there working, grinding a thing, but now it's open. And who knows, maybe she'll notice. I think this gets into the territory of um stepping out of line again, not for the sake of like for the same like level of like you are. This is more of just like you are doing this in general, and let's see if someone like we'll see what happens there. So I guess what are you afraid might happen from you doing this?
That I think that the main thing is that like in a quick succession,
Mm-hmm.
there could potentially be two girls that know that Patrizia was essentially showing too much skin to Patrick in a way,
Mhm.
showing too much favor to Patrick, that's gonna get her a fucking. She's gonna get her hide torn up.
Mm.
So she doesn't want there to develop. She's okay with there being rumblings of crushes and like lingering eyes. She does not want the S word to be thrown around.
Yeah.
She
Fair.
doesn't want. She doesn't want people to think that she is like that. She just thinks that like, oh no, yeah, Patrizia just has a little crush on Patrick. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. In the context of this is being said openly in a place where we know someone's already kind of like nearby and might overhear it, I could see this being either charm or gut because I could see it like on the one hand you're flirting with Patrick, on the other hand it's I guess it depends on like do you consider the flirting to be a genuine notion or more of like you're toying with him because like do you intend to follow through on these things or is this just you baiting him?
Um, I think this is if any of the other girls asked Patrizia,
Mm-hmm.
she would say, of course, she's just using this to get information on Marga. But deep down within her, she's like, Patrick is could potentially be one of the least awful men in this whole entire hotel. And so, like, while I'm here, might as well have fun with a nice boy, you know? He just
Make it
stares a lot. That's his worst thing is that he stares a lot.
roll with charm.
Okay. That is a 4.
Or on a miss, you're in trouble.
Making a spanking.
There is an expression that crosses his face. He kind of like, he stopped as he was descending and looked up at you. And then you went a bit further. You tugged at the drawstrings. You made it a little bit more overt. And you're not sure if it's specifically that gets this reaction, but it's something of like um a spell that clicks like that breaks behind his eyes and he just kind of like goes rigid and his face goes hard and then in a very like sudden burst of anger he throws the basket that he was carrying down there. You have to actually like step out of the side as it goes sailing across the room and like
Angry
just
boy.
slams into the wall and it scatters its contents and he's gone a bit like red in the face. You can actually hear like a little bit of like a nervous yelp from Ilka down below as Patrick hoists himself out of the hatch and then lets it drop behind him as he gets right up in your face breathing very heavily, this kind of like rage simmering behind him and he grabs you kind of like hands firmly at your shoulder as he like looks down at you. You can like feel this very large man's strength just like clasping your shoulders directly in place and very quietly in his broken German he says, if girl does not know how to do job, maybe Pfeiffer needs to know. And that is said with all of the underlying context of right now for him, whatever that was a moment ago, that's up. Like he is now going back into like he has a fucking job to do. You have a job to do. And he is just lacing his words with the subtext of um, go back to cutting and peeling the fucking vegetables. He's very angry. I'm gonna say that let's see 1 second. I'm gonna have you mark 2 stress.
I am going to go ahead and I'm going to, seeing that you're going to have me mark 2 stress, I'm going to add 1 on top of that to bring it up to a 7. Um,
Okay.
because Patrizia is an Italian woman. She understands that men, especially having a blacksmith father, can have tempers and everything. they just need a gentle stare or an intense stare, and then a gentle hand upon their breast, and they'll melt like butter in a pan.
Mm.
And so I think it is very much going to, yeah, just like staring into the face of a giant, of a monster, and just being like, your anger does not scare me, in like broken German, very quiet broken German.
So you're going to
And
bump it
then,
up to a 7 to 9.
yeah,
So you tell me, do things go your way or are there no consequences?
I'm gonna say there's no consequences.
Got you. So in that case, then we saw that play out where he um, um, like I think he didn't in this case, as we rewind, he did not like throw it in the sudden burst of rage, but there was clearly this like anger that was beginning to take root behind his expression, and he was going kind of like rigid. And you're able to like cut that off before like floor like the whatever you were attempting, it clearly did not pan out here,
Yeah.
and like it kind of died on the vine. But before that situation can devolve into anything else, you meet his expression and all of the allure, the implication, the invitation is immediately then replaced by just a single brunt right back at him, as like as you stated.
Mhm.
And it's quiet, it's tense, and there's a moment of absolute stillness. And Patrick looks fraught, he looks angry, but it just begins to simmer background into just a general harshness. And he gets up, sets the basket next to you, doesn't continue taking it down to the curing cellar, and looks up at you, or looks down at you, as he just kind of huffs and then walks back over to the counter, leaving you to just kind of stand there. But you pick up the basket, you go about your work, and tensions are raised, but you kind of prevented it from going anywhere else.
I think it's a nice trade-off. I'll
Mm-hmm.
take that.
And Anna, let me ask you, is the rest of your day, did I have anything lingering else I need to react to?
Yeah, I
Oh.
had a miss as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I do want to bump it up.
Oh, what
However,
did you get again?
I got a 6.
On what?
Uh on effectively ignoring like the requirement of like, oh yeah, I want
Oh,
the
that's right.
sheet back in an hour.
That's right. Then, oh yeah, let me give you a little consequence of that. Which is you are in the hallway, and um uh when how do I phrase this? So you're in the hallway, right? Like, moving around things, going between guest rooms. It's been a minute when Regina turns the corner and she sees you. And, she was clearly out of her room, and she is suddenly full of like a burning rage behind her eyes as she comes to like stomp up. And she just starts, just yelling in your face about how you can't do your fucking job right. You get a couple of like people who probably are like listening at doors, a couple of the doors like creak open as people begin to listen in, but she's like laying into you about how she asked for her sheets and that it's been a few hours now. And it's a cascade of things, like, because she's like mentioning how like on top of everything else, like she can't find her fucking husband. He's off cavorting with God knows who, probably listening to that Dutch doctor or whatever, and just like just or maybe like talking about you know girls with that lascivious waiter at the bar. Like, she's like rambling off. It's more becomes like this projection matter than anything about the actual sheets themselves. But it ends with her just giving you a slap across the face, and like stepping into your like right up into your business, and like demanding you give her sheets now. And this whole thing blows up. Several people hear about it, and Miss Pfeiffer ends up having to show up to like intercede, to play the part of like like, like to apologize for all this, that it will be handled, that she'll see the seats done. Mr. Russo, even from the fringes, kind of, watches here and there. And there are talks about how like, they'll send them some like complimentary stuff for a alpine picnic. They can arrange some like just to make up for this unpleasant experience. All of that said, though, your cheek has just this like raw stinging soreness to it, and when everything is said and done, so much time has passed, and Pfeiffer gives you the eyes of like, you have fucked up, and there will be punishments later, but leaves you to go back about your work because the punishments will come another time. You're muted, by the way.
So anyways, I mark stress to bump it up to 7.
Okay, yeah, got you. So on a 7, you tell me, did you do things go your way here, or are there no consequences for acting up?
Like I'm fine with like the wife being mad at me. She was already mad at me to begin with. So like I think things go my way and I do as I intend, which is doing the sheets last.
And it not being like a huge stink, right? Like it's like clearly it's like you do it last, and like maybe like what like going your way looks like is that it's not like that did not just play out, right? But the consequences for acting up actually have nothing to do with Regina, because again, you do this, Regina's not the one to blow up, because I think amidst all the other things, Regina doesn't even notice. It's like she's got other things she's worrying about. She's not even in the room when you get to it. Finally, you replace the sheets last. But I think the consequences here are. Let me actually. I'm thinking about how to phrase this. I think I'll say that just like it's like a lingering background thing, right? Where it's like you, how do I phrase this? I think it still is going to tie back to Miss Pfeiffer in a way. I think specifically that it's like, however she does it, even though she wasn't fucking there, it's almost like Miss Pfeiffer always knows, right? That even when you act up and she can find out about it. And in this case, it's like, somehow she clocks the fact that it's like, there was a demand that you did not meet intentionally. And it's not said in words. It's just that the consequences are simply going to be that there will be a kind of like a punishment later that Miss Pfeiffer does. Because again, it's not like she sees you doing this now. It's just that somehow Miss Pfeiffer catches wind of it. She always does.
She has eyes on the back of her head.
Exactly. You didn't even see her. You're pretty sure she didn't get told from Regina. So whatever the case, your little act of rebellion, sure, it worked. But Regina, but Miss Pfeiffer, she's always watching somehow. I think that will bring the day to a close. I think we have all of you attending to various tasks and kind of like roped into things one way or another, whether they played out or not. So let's go into the twilight. So dinner is had. Miss Pfeiffer, just make some general announcements about the state of the guests and things like that, but nothing noteworthy comes up. However, she does make a point of, mentioning that she goes on a little post in her speech, right? Where she's just like, there are the values of being seen and not heard, and also being well rested, because a well rested chambermaid is an attentive chambermaid, and her thoughts can lean solely on the task at hand and the efficiency and the respect that the guests deserve and will receive, and the respect of their fellow staff. And it's very heavy-handed way of her sending Anna to bed early for forcing the hand of being like, you seem tired. And that's how she phrases it. That she doesn't say like, you fucked up and you are to be going to bed early before supper. No, she makes it very clearly like, Anna worked very hard today and she seems tired. So you don't even get dinner. You are sent to bed. And that look on her face is like, it's like Miss Pfeiffer always fucking finds out somehow. And now let's talk about the Twilight phase. Each player, in turn, says what their girl will do during the night, and you may revise your plan once everyone has taken a turn. And then I will introduce the dream. Now, here's an interesting note. If you choose to just go to sleep to get a full night's rest, you can take no action during the night phase. You get to do something during it, but it'll have to do with the dreams. However, you get to clear 2 stress in the dawn phase. A full night's sleep, clear stress. Get to remove a couple points. But at the expense of you can't take actions during the night. So if you do want to take actions during the night, it's assumed that you're sneaking out, you're going around, you're moving through the hotel's dark corridors. You're going to get what rest you can to function, but it's not going to be enough to take the edge off. And if there are no sleeping girls, then everyone takes turns narrating the dream prompts. If there are sleeping girls, only they narrate the dream prompts. And the dreams are the way the game kind of emphasizes sort of like surreal, uncanny sense of like lingering horror, because maybe they're shared dreams, or maybe we just see insight into one dream, but all the same, the dreams are a sort of thematic boiling unease at the heart of the night. So let's go in character keeper order, starting with Anna, who was the one got sent to bed without dinner early and is expected to be in there all night. That doesn't mean you are forced to sleep. It just simply means that there will be probably more consequences if you're caught out of bed than in. What do you do?
Yeah, considering I did get into trouble already, and I think that my current stress levels being 2 away from being fully stressed out, I think I should go to bed proper.
Very good. What about Patrizia?
Patrizia is going to try her luck out and about, and is going to try to go out to the well, and is going to try to go to specifically the woods, like near the well, the tree line where she used to smoke cigarettes with Marga, and see if she can find if there's anything left behind or anything there.
Sure. What about Tiziana?
Tiziana is also going to be up. I'm trying to decide on what exactly it is that she's going to be looking into. Maybe fuck, I got nothing. But she's gonna be up. We'll go and check on the where does the doctor do his examinations?
Well, he doesn't do. The doctor isn't a hotel staff member. He's a guest. He's a visiting doctor who's staying here. So technically, his room.
I see.
Which is seedy.
Yeah. Well, fuck it. Let's break into a doctor's room and go through his shit.
Okay. Any revisions from anyone? All right, then Anna's sleeping. Patrizia is going to be going outside the hotel, and Tiziana is going to try and break into Dr. Briegel's bedchambers. Then in that case, that means Anna is the only sleeping member tonight, which means Chaotic is solely responsible for the dream tonight. And let's talk about the dream. I think tonight we will do the red stew on the dream page. A young woman is peeling potatoes in the hotel's kitchen. Peeled spuds bob around in a bucket of water between her knees. There's nobody there, but there is a big pot on the fire. It smells of meat and spices. That will be Chaotic's duty. One moment. And that will be all the time we have today. So we will do the night phase next time and explore the dream then, as it is Chaotic's sole responsibility as we get to see what transpires in the halls of the Genziana Hotel. Let's do stars and wishes, everybody. Whoever would like to go first, by all means.
That tasteless. Okay, I'll go first then. A star for this game because like it really really has a very interesting opening to it that I really have not seen from other CFB games, as well as just generally like making it feel very concise with like the limited location of like, oh no, there's just this one mystery going on, but it has multiple parts. So like that is a very hard thing to balance, as well as like the sort of stress mechanic because like I'm hoping to see Patricia stress out because like she's very close. However, I don't think me stressing out would help anyone with like me being guilty uh over whatever. But as well as like giving like specific prompts of like, hey, you're supposed to do this during the day, but also like figure out like how to do investigations. It's really, really snappy with getting people to investigate things, as well as giving like preventing the issue of the public access library issue. Um, it's very, very smart sort of thing. Star for Alex for putting on like the screws of like, oh yeah, you don't really have much power here, do you? So like that was very, very good. Uh just Star for the painted scene prompts, especially with like the well of like all the drawings and whatnots. We were on the same page with various levels of like explicitness. Um as well as like giving like characterization to Marga. That's just very good. Star for Patricia for just we're gonna flirt with Patrick there, and like he's the nicest one out of the one with a very nasty ass temper and all the knives.
Which says a lot, right?
Yeah.
That Patrick's probably the least harmful of all of it, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So far that we've met. I don't trust that Englishman, by the way.
Hmm.
No, that
I,
guy sucks.
I consider him to be a pest. I don't like his wife. I don't know honestly which one is worse. Wait, no, that's the German guy. He's not English.
Yeah, English is Barnaby. Matthias is German. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get a feeling from Barnaby.
The feeling
Barnaby,
is nausea.
I think Barnaby is ultimately harmless, but he's going to be real annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go real quick. Star to Patrizia's, scene with Patrick, the kind of progression of that, of going from like lure him in, kind of got him along the chain, and then like when it began to like fall off, kind of like met him even-eyed. And it was just really cool, kind of like a dynamic the way that those roles created that scene. Because I mean, like I really enjoyed your role play there, Wes. And your general approach, and immediately said so much about Patrizia as a character, and your thinking behind it enhanced that a lot. Tiziana, I know very little about her so far, but from those insights at the well and her conversation with Wenzel, she was very friendly to Wenzel, asking him if he needed any water for his herbs. That it was a star of like, okay, so she's the one who is ostensibly very friendly and accommodating. And so, I mean, this is a general star for all of you. For like, we saw really great little characterizations, and then yeah, for chaotic Anna's interaction with like Regina, I got this almost immediate, and then the pettiness that played out afterwards gave this immediate sense of like she's the customer service one. She's the one who is like I I'm doing my fake smile and nodding because the customer is always right, but also I'm making it very clear that I hate you and I hate being here. So like we have three very distinct girls. I mean, and this is a broader star for the game itself, because of the times I've run this so far. The right out of the gate, the girls have been very strong characters, and yeah, on the one hand, that's because it has a really good kind of like way of like building a scaffolding around them for people to launch their characters with. But you guys are, ace role players in our times together. So you not only like took these couple of sentences and numbers and fleshed them out very fast, you used the randomly assigned guilts to kind of like help color a little bit of the personality as well that's at the fringes. So that was really cool. I really like these characters, and I'm already pretty invested in their story. I thoroughly enjoy negotiating. You guys know this about me as a keeper, the conversational aspect of role playing. I'm a big fan of that. And there was something really fun about how we converse in this specific session. Like we do a lot of that already in our games. I don't know what it is, but something about it in this game felt even more like, ooh, I was a little like jazzed up. Maybe it's because I was already really into the fact of like, you guys were like, what if we do like a crane zooming shot into the hotel? I'm like, oh, that's fun. So that was a lot of really great stuff. And the pacing felt good, which was, I can't just take the credit for that, because you guys as players were also kind of, building your actions and narrative threads around this kind of like sense of what we had, dialed the pace to. So it kind of made me feel even more comfortable shifting the spotlight. Wishes, I very much, am intrigued to see what'll happen during the nighttime. I definitely want to see some utilization of the move pay attention, which is one that it's one where it's like, are you getting clues or are you paying attention? And I kind of want to see where people take that one, because the pay attention move would have been a fucking extra cherry on top of Patrizia's interactions with Patrick.
Yeah.
And that's, I didn't think about it in the moment, but I realized afterwards, like, well, because the way you phrased it, it was more overt. So I'm like, this is you're stepping out of line. But like, for example, you could have like done the pay attention role beforehand to like get insight into him and then approach him. So I think it's interesting how you can kind of like tier the approach, but it still works regardless. Like you can have like your more direct ones. Oh, and star, I almost forgot star to our first, major kind of investigatory role was a very subtle one of like, I'm sniffing the sheets. I'm going to get a clue. Mm-hmm. That's one of the situations where it's like, you don't need to step out of line or do anything at all to get into a position to do a clue, because it's like, well, she said the seats smell funny, so let's see what I get from this. That was great. And I'm excited to see what answers people end up developing for the first question as we kind of get more clues. And I want people to stress out so they can unlock their grief moves and see how that all manifests. Because overall, like this game has received some pretty awesome like tweaks since I last ran it. And I already really liked it before, and I like it even more now. So I want to just continue to explore the system and see what comes of it.
Yeah, I can go ahead and take it from there. I really like this system a lot. I'm glad I've got to play it. Hendrik kind of sent me some stuff as well, and we talked a little bit about some stuff with it. And I'm glad that we're getting to play it so I can just see it in action. It's fun as fuck, and it's such like a like I was finding myself kind of like almost scared to take to like talk about Patrizia at all, but this is different from the Between or public access. You don't have to hide your backstory. But that was something that was kind of in the back of my mind as like something where I was like, oh, don't share too much though, which is like, hey, this is we're taking trading wheels off of Between games now almost, and we're kind of like getting into like what does it look like with different mechanics? I really like the stress mechanic as well. I think that's a very interesting way of like translating HP for a game like this. Um,
I actually will note, by the way, I didn't say this during the thing. It is functionally impossible for any of the girls to die in the game. That death is basically off the table, but that does not mean that your fate is an easy one. I'll explain it more next time, but
yeah,
conditions work a little differently in this version of the game than what we're familiar with. And yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I get what you mean.
nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I want to give a star for Chaotic for getting into the meddlesome trouble there and really sticking your foot in it and just kind of like exploring. It allowed me to be able to have a scene where I could just kind of um like kind of focus on one character and kind of like sow some seeds that can grow back later down the line. It was a nice little like kind of like a little tango. And on the reverse side of that, Steph, of you explored a little bit. You kind of got like we got to see a little bit more NPCs with you. We got to see a little bit more of the hotel with you. And I liked that kind of a like how we all had very distinct approaches to the mystery and everything. And we're all kind of like doing things in our own special way to keep it moving forward, which is very fun. So kudos for that. Big fan of that stuff. Alex, you're running this very well. This is I am having a fun time with this already. I'm already hooked. I'm into it. So good job on that. Um, and Steph, I wanted to say a good job with Tiziana having this kind of like that scene with Barnaby of like kind of having this like obstinance about her with this English guy. But in almost a playful manner, but also in a like a kind of nervous manner. It's a nice like there's a lot of layers to that interaction. I really appreciated that. Wishes. I can't wait to play more of this. I'm having a great time. We're all having a great time. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I can go last. I have to turn off my camera for a moment, but uh, for starters, this is great. I really fuck with this game heavy. It's a lot of fun and it's a good way to just explore a lot of different dynamics that we don't really get to see a lot in role playing games. It's really, I guess, fresh is really the best word for it. It's fresh and it's cool and it is really fun, honestly. I'm also very excited about the stress mechanic. It is very interesting to me, and I'm excited to learn more about it so that I can potentially adapt it for my own things. But as far as specific stars go, for Chaotic, I absolutely love how Anna is very like you chose the affluent merchant background and you can kind of really tell that like she's used to dealing with this kind of situation with these kinds of people and used to being one of the smartest people in the room just by nature of being able to have the resources to be smart. And I think she's a very interesting character, and I'm like very excited to see where further that goes. Um, for Wes, I absolutely love Patricia's like butch grandma vibes. Like she's so strong, both physically and as a character. It's very impressive. Like you managed to get that right away from the very first scene. Like I struggled a little bit at first, but you just immediately sailed right into it, and that's very impressive. Uh, for Alex, this honestly, this was great. I really love how you portray these characters in the one shot that we played. Uh, there were some similarities between how you portrayed Patrick and Wenzel, but there were also differences that were very fun and intriguing. So it just really shows to like how skilled you are as a facilitator, as a game master, that you're able to take anything, and regardless of how many times you play it or run through it, you're able to tweak it just a little bit to make it more interesting, to make it more fun for everyone involved. It's just really, really awesome. As far as wishes go, I'm very excited to play more of this, and I'm excited to see fully how grief moves and stress works.
Awesome. Any other stars or wishes?
This is like one of my favorite. I guess I'm not sure what to call it besides like genre of games, because like I really enjoy like Bluebeard's Bride. I've played Night Witches before, so like I can tell like what tech comes from that, because like Night Witches has like informed like a lot of Carved from Brentwood design tech with like the day and night move. But then like there is like some tech with like the stress mechanic that is going back to Night Witches form, as well as the genre of womanhood in games. So like I just like it, and I this is sort of expansively outside of like this specific system, but I would really like to see Alex run more of like this genre of games, because I'm just very curious to like, because I enjoy running this genre of games, so I would like to see more of this.
Well, I'm
I like
definitely interested. Yeah, go ahead.
I like
We
the
need
day-night
dungeon witches.
structure. There's some stuff that like I'm doing with like Freak Wing, which is like my like what if Monster Hearts was CFB, but let's make it more contained and everything like that. And like I like the idea of like having tasks and chores and stuff that you have to do during the day phase that makes investigation hard. And so at nighttime, you have the full freedom of the place, but it's also more dangerous. So I really like that kind of concept and everything. So yeah, no, I can't wait to see how that plays out more, especially in tandem with the um stress mechanic. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you that the this game is directly inspired by Hendrik reading a book called Strega, Strega,
Hmm.
Strega by Johanna Lika Holm.
Hmm.
So I'm going to read that because that's the book that inspired this game.
Hmm.
So media wise, genre wise, I'm very much a fan of this. This is like a star I do have to add about the system. This is as someone who's done a lot of the between, this is I think arguably I've gotten like the most gothic feeling experience out of the Genziana Hotel playtest I've done so far. There's something very like somber and kind of like all encompassing about it, especially when we get to the night phase. I'm very excited for, but like I can almost always hear cellos in the background when I'm playing this game. Like vibes wise, it's not the like heightened melodrama of Penny Dreadful like the Between is. This is more like actually like gothic and drawn out, and I really like it.
It's very much like a nice mix of Crimson Peak meets Gosford Park, because
Yes.
it has that upstairs downstairs kind of feel to it as well. But yeah, with the mystery vibe, but also the gothic energy. Yeah, the somberness. Yeah.
100%. Well, if there are no other stars or wishes, we will see one another for part two, hopefully next week. So until then, bye bye.
See ya.
Bye.